Hi everyone, join me and my groupmates today and together let's explore the African literature. My role for today's video is the developer, and I am also assigned to discuss to you the key information about African literature.
Hi, I am Drea Sapallieda. My role of this video is the researcher who organizes the materials, and also I am the monitor who will give a feedback on the group performance.
Hi, I'm Christopher Adams Mashampasa, a participant.
Please welcome also Jeneline Montero, one of the participants and who going to ask the questions during the discussion.
Introduction to African Literature. What are the common experiences of all people? What does it mean to be human? These may be large questions, so let's be more specific. What does it mean to be European? Any answer to this question would have to ignore specifics for each country. A similar problem arises when trying to define African literature. African literature. Each of these separate countries have their own history, culture, tribes, and traditions. That being said, there are some commonalities shared by literature which comes from the continent as a whole. There are 54 nations which make up Africa. Defining African literature can be complicated. There are some authors who believe African literature can only be composed in African language. Others believe African literature can be composed in any language so long as it is composed by authors from Africa. In this lesson, we'll narrow our focus to the broader history and characteristics of African literature in general.
What are the characteristics of African literature?
Allow me to discuss to you the characteristic of African literature.
The basic characteristics of African English literature are: first, written in both African and European languages. The predominant African languages used are Amharic, Zulu, Hausa, and Swahili. Second, encapsulates different periods in African history from ancient Africa to the period of imperialist domination, 15th to 19th century, and from the post-colonialist and Reconstruction period, 19th to mid-20th century, to the post-independent contemporary period, mid-20th century till the present. Third, includes oral and written literature from more than 3,000 ethnic African groups. Fourth, may be regionally based, such as West African literature, North African, South African, or East African literature. Fifth, oral literature comes in varied forms such as myths, folktales, proverbs, dramas, songs, and folktales. They often involve stories about the creation of the world and legends about how various powerful dynasties originated in African regions. Sixth, during the colonialization period, written slave narratives documented European atrocities and the horrors of slavery. Nationalist newspapers, as well as resistance liberation poetry, critiqued European colonializers and their practices. Seventh, in the 19th century, various African authors produced works in English criticizing colonialist ambitions and advocating for independence. These authors include Chinua Achebe, Wol Soyinka, Ngugi Wan Thiong'o. 8th, during the post-colonialist era, various authors denounced the practice of apartheid. These authors include Nadine Gordimer, Bessie Head, and J.M. Coetzee. Lastly, but not the least, contemporary African literature often documents how corrupt modern African governments perpetuate the suffering of African people.
And my question is, who are some of the notable African authors?
Allow me to introduce to you the three of the most prominent African novelists.
The first notable author of African literature is Peter Henry Abrahams Deras. He was born on March 3, 1919, and he died on January 18, 2017. Commonly known as Peter Abrahams, was a South African-born novelist, journalist, and political commentator who, in 1956, settled in Jamaica, where he lived for the rest of his life. His death at age of 97 is considered to have been murder. Among his works is Mind Boy, dated in 1946, published by Dorothy Crisp and Company. His seminal novel, the first author to bring the horrific reality of South Africa's apartheid system of racial discrimination to international attention. The Path of Thunder, dated in 1948, Wild Conquest, dated in 1950, and Return to Goli, dated in 1953, is among his famous works. The second author in our list is Chinua Achebe, which was born in November 16, 1930, and died on March 21, 2013. He was a Nigerian novelist, poet, professor, and critic. His first novel, Things Fall Apart, dated in 1958, often considered his masterpiece, is the most widely read book in modern African literature. Dead Man's Path is a short story by the Nigerian writer Chinua Achebe, first published in 1953. The short story has been noted as an example of cultural conflict. Arrow of God, No Longer at Ease, Things Fall Apart, A Man of the People, and Thills of the Savannah are among his works. Lastly, Jose Eduardo Agualusa Alves de Cunha, born in December 13, 1960. He is an Angolan journalist and writer of Portuguese and Brazilian descent. He studied agronomy and silviculture in Lisbon, Portugal. Currently, he resides in the island of Mozambique, working as a writer and journalist. He also has been working to establish a public library on the island. General Theory of Oblivion, Portuguese, Teoria Geral de Esquecimento, is a 2013 novel by Angolan author Jose Eduardo Agualusa. The novel recounts the story of a Portuguese woman who locks herself into her apartment with Angola on the brink of independence. She attempts to cut herself off from the external world for 3 decades until she meets a young boy who informs her for the radical changes which have occurred in the country in the intervening years. The book is based on real-life events.
Hello everyone! Here's my feedback. So far, the performance is good. The famous writers are being mentioned and it is very informative. Good job, everyone.